Hey guys, tonight we journey down a path once worn smooth by countless feet, hooves, and the occasional wheelbarrow full of fermented apricots. You're about to walk the Silk Road, not all 7,000 miles of it. Don't worry, we're pacing ourselves. This ancient trade network stitched together empires, ideas, and, apparently, a truly out selection of perfumes and pickled snacks. And let's be honest, you probably wouldn't survive this in real life. The desert sun, altitude sickness, tax collectors with suspicious mustaches, it's a lot. But in this version, you're well rested, lightly sun-kissed, and only mildly bothered by the camel you'll be meeting soon. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from, and what time is it there. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you notice is the wind. It rolls in from the horizon like it owns the place dry, slightly peppery, and warm enough to bake bread on your forehead if you stood still long enough. You're standing just outside a desert outpost, halfway between somewhere important and somewhere that's definitely not on the map. Around you, the Silk Road is alive, not in the glamorous, gold-plated way travel brochures would have you believe, but in the dusty, chaotically fragrant way of real life. Camels bellow. Spices sneeze themselves into the air. A merchant is arguing with a child about the proper age of a melon. You're not alone. Traders, guides, scholars, and accidental tourists shuffle around, wrapped in shawls and secrets. Some are here for silk. Others for ideas. You're not entirely sure what brought you. Maybe curiosity. Maybe sleep deprivation. Maybe the apricot snack someone handed you 3 towns ago that might have been laced with something inspirational. A wiry man with one eyebrow and a scroll tucked behind his ear approaches. First time? He asks, eyeing your impractically clean shoes. You nod. He grins. We'll fix that. He gestures toward the trading post behind him, a maze of tents, carts, low-slung mud brick shops, and one very ambitious monkey trying to steal a bracelet. The sun hangs low, painting everything with melted gold and long shadows. Someone nearby is roasting chickpeas. Someone else is singing about goats. You walk in. Inside the post, it's louder than you'd expect for a place mostly built of canvas and hopes. Languages collide midair. Laughter bursts out of nowhere. A Sogdian merchant is swearing at a Greek sailor over a miscounted bundle of dyed wool. A Tibetan monk is serenely watching it all, sipping tea out of a bowl that smells faintly of peppercorns. You move slowly, your sense is pulling you in all directions. One stall displays lapis lazuli stones so blue they seem impossible. Another smells like crushed roses and something suspiciously like roasted onions. You pass a man selling medicinal powders. He offers you something for soul fatigue, and you consider it, but you already have tea. There's something odd about the pace of this place. It's busy, yes, but not rushed. No one's checking a clock. No one's yelling about deadlines. Bargains are made over several cups of tea, several days apart. A deal isn't real unless someone almost walks away 3 times. You try to look casual, even as you fumble with a coin patch that definitely doesn't match your robe. You stop at a tent where a merchant is selling, well, you're not sure. Is that a hat? Or a small collapsible boat? He tries to sell you a desert umbrella, which is a long stick with a shaggy goat pelt draped over it. You're not like, this is very useful. Historians still wonder how much of this bartering was actually economic, and how much of it was just an excuse to socialize in the middle of nowhere. There's even a theory that some traders deliberately priced things absurdly, just for the fun of arguing. You try your luck at a stall selling honey cakes shaped like animals. The vendor eyes you, then offers a discount if you can guess what animal you're holding. You say donkey, and she sighs. It's a lion. But you seem polite. Half price as the sun begins to dip behind the horizon, the air shifts. The wind cools. The whole trading post seems to lean inward, softer, calmer. Lanterns flicker to light glass globes, copper plates, simple clay bowls filled with oil. The place becomes a warm constellation of quiet golden light. You find a spot on a rug near a low table and sit. Someone offers you tea, unasked. It tastes like minted memory. In the distance, a stringed instrument begins to play. Nearby, a man recites a poem about sun and sisters and the smell of almond trees. You sigh. Not because you're tired, but because the air is so full of stories you're not sure how you'll carry them all. A merchant beside you offers a small bag of dried figs, just in case you get hungry on the way to the next mistake. You smile and take it. Hospitality, out here, is the glue between strangers. And also, probably, how a lot of plates got started. Still, it's charming. Somewhere overhead, stars begin to blink awake. The first camels of the night caravan shuffle into formation. There's talk of moving on by dawn. But for now, you stay. You sip your tea. You let the dust settle. You're on the Silk Road, and the road oddly enough seems in no rush to leave you behind. You wake, if you can call it that, to the snorting indignation of a camel named Parsnip. Parsnip is, according to the caravan master, experience. This is code for old, opinionated, and highly suspicious of you in particular. Her fur is a bit patchy, her breath smells like fermented cactus juice, and she makes a sound that can only be described as an angry accordion filled with gravel. But she's yours now. Congratulations. You're not alone in this peculiar bond. Your traveling companions hastily gathered by a traitor with no concept of interpersonal harmony include a wide-eyed monk who hums while he walks, a perfume merchant who refuses to walk at all, and a child named Jin who claims to be the reincarnation of a steppe general and keeps challenging bushes to sword fights. No one seems particularly qualified to be here, including you. The caravan is a string of bodies, wheels, ropes, and opinions stretched out across the hard-packed earth. The road ahead is cracked and dusty, winding like a lazy thought toward the horizon. You're given a satchel of travel bread, the kind that tastes like chalk and betrayal, and told to mount Parsnip. She does not approve. Your first few miles are spent figuring out which bumps cause the most dramatic camel noises. Spoiler: all of them. The rest of the caravan chatters quietly, some in shared languages, others in pantomime or song. A merchant in the rear plays a flute made from what you hope is bamboo, though it suspiciously resembles a femur. There's something odd about traveling this way. It's slow. Very slow. Modern life doesn't prepare you for the reality of inching across a continent one sandblasted half-print at a time. You start to measure time by the shifting sun, the angle of your shadow, the number of raisins left in your pouch. To your left, desert. To your right, more desert. And ahead, parsnips behind, swaying like a furry metronome. You begin to wonder if she's doing it to hypnotize you. She probably is. But eventually, somewhere between dehydration and complete existential surrender, you begin to notice things. A fated milestone marked with something like an ancient moai. A bird with a laugh that sounds like it's mocking your hat. A cloud that looks exactly like a disappointed librarian. The world becomes detail. The road, absurd as it is, starts to make a kind of sense. Midday brings a break at a rocky outcrop where shade is traded like currency. Jin teaches the monk to whistle using a blade of grass, then declares himself grass general. The perfume merchant produces a folding chair and a parasol, and announces he will not be rejoining the caravan until someone finds him a pila with proper goose density lunch, his dried apricots and salted nuts. Parsnip tries to eat your map. You utter. As you sit chewing and watching heat shimmer off the sand, one of the guides tells a story about a merchant who once tried to trade his entire caravan for a single glass bead said to be enchanted, of course. He claimed it let him dream the future. The guide shrugs, but mostly he just wondered and dwells. After that, historians still wonder about how many strange deals like that actually happened. We know contracts were drawn in multiple languages, sealed with wax, sometimes even sung aloud to make them harder to fake. But there are gaps, peculiar transactions mentioned in passing but never explained. Silk for snow, salt for ghost honey, a mirror for a memory. Records are murky. Truth, even murkier. Back on the road, you fall into rhythm. The crunch of hoop on grade. The flap of the road. The occasional sigh from someone who's remembered they left their favorite spoon back in Kenton. You pass an old watchtower, half collapsed, scribbled with graffiti that might be poetry or might just say "East was here." A single green plant grows defiantly out of the wall, and someone hangs a strip of blue cloth from it for luck. You do the same, unsure why, but it feels right. The afternoon light casts long shadows. Your eyes begin to play tricks. You swear you see a man riding a donkey backwards while playing cymbals. You blink, and he's gone, or perhaps he was never there. You start to talk to Parsnip. Not because she responds, she doesn't, but because she's the only one who doesn't interrupt. You confess that you're not entirely sure how you ended up here. That you've never walked this far in a single direction. That you're beginning to suspect the monk is secretly judging you. Parsnip falls in agreement. Eventually, as dusk approaches, the caravan stops again, this time near a circle of flat stones arranged in a spiral. It's unclear whether it's an ancient site, a natural fluke, or a very organized group of snakes. Regardless, it's camp for the night. Tents go up like sleepy mushrooms. A fire is lit, and tea is brewed in a pot that has definitely outlived several owners. You eat stew made of something local, and it's not bad. Parsnip settles nearby, curling her legs under her like a bony bread roll. Someone begins to sing a low, wordless tune that sounds like it remembers things. Jin is asleep, curled up next to a water pouch like it's a teddy bear. The perfume merchant has returned, dramatically declaring the desert a tragic exfoliant. You lie back, the sky above you a net of stars, impossibly bright. You feel small, but not in a bad way. The road may be long. Your camel may be cursed. But there's something soothing about the slow absurdity of it all. In the dark, someone mumbles a question you don't quite catch. And just like that, the silence becomes part of the story. You wave to the sound of someone aggressively playing the spoon. Yes, the spoon. Apparently, Jin, the self-declared grass general, has taken it upon himself to compose the world's most irritating desert anthem, using a cooking spoon and a kettle lid. The monk applauds politely. Parsnip glares in a way that could probably curdle milk. You stretch, brushing sand off your face and dreams from your eyes. Breakfast is warm. That's all you can really say. It's a rice-based thing that crunches in places rice should not crunch. You eat it anyway, because travel builds character and lowers standards. By mid-morning, the caravan is rolled out again. Today's air carries a dry crispness like old paper or very expensive curtains. The light is softer, and for a moment, you allow yourself the wild thought that this might actually be enjoyable. Your guide today is a man with a beard so impressive it has its own personality. He leads you along a fork in the road toward a place not originally on the itinerary, a smaller village known for trading fabrics made of bark. Yes, bark. The road there is narrower, lined with shrubs that look like they're planting something. You pass a goat standing on a boulder with the authority of a mountain king. No one dares question him. The village appears suddenly woven between trees like it just grew there, huts made from reeds, palm trunks, and thatch roofs patched with woven silk and optimism. Children run barefoot. Dogs with philosophical expressions lounge in the sun. You are hit with the heavy scent of sap and sweet smoke. A woman with silver in her braid waves you over. She holds up a cloak that looks like it was made from tree skin, which it was. Bear clit, she explains. Litwet, durable, waterproof, and slightly judgmental. It's made from beating the inner bark of certain trees until it turns into fabric, which is equal parts practical and violent. You're intrigued. You try it on. You immediately regret this. It's waterproof, sure, but it's also textured like a cheese grater dipped in glue. You're sweating within seconds. The merchant looks hopeful. You look itchy. Still, you feel obligated to make a trade. That's the rule out here. If you touch it, admire it, and awkwardly wear it while scratching your neck, you're halfway to ownership. You offer a silk handkerchief with a faded map printed on it. She considers this, squints, then nods. You now own a piece of fashion that doubles as sandpaper. Nearby, the monk is engaged in what appears to be a staring contest with a parrot. The bird says, "Better luck next time," and flies off. You're not sure who won. Historians still debate how far bear cloth traveled through Silk Road networks. Some say it reached as far west as the Mediterranean. Others insist it was mostly traded within island and jungle communities. Either way, it was surprisingly popular for something that feels like wrapping yourself in a decorative tree trunk. You continue through the village, where merchants try to sell you carved coconut spoons, fragrant root bundles, and something described as jungle butter that smells like overripe pineapple and broken dreams. You take a sample. Your lips tingle for an hour. A small boy hands you a flute made of bone and tells you it can charm goats who buy it out of fear. Jin immediately tries to test it. 3 goats follow him for the rest of the day, looking unimpressed. You settle in a shaded square where traders gather to barter stories along with goods. One man tells of a bear cloth robe worn by a Pacific chief that could stop arrows. Another claims his cloak once blocked a curse. A woman insists she used hers as both blanket and boat. Useful, she says, but not for cuddling. You sip something herbal from a cracked wooden bowl. It tastes like someone tried to make soup out of a forest. You don't hate it. The conversation drifts. Someone asks if there's really a city on the back of a turtle somewhere east. Someone else says no, but swears they once saw a frog wearing glasses. You decide not to challenge any of this. The Silk Road, it turns out, is a place where stories bend like willow branches and everyone's truth is slightly fermented. As evening falls, you prepare to leave the village, arms full of things you never meant to acquire. You've traded away your backup sandals and received a flute, a bark hat, and a small pouch of seeds labeled extremely optimistic. The villagers wave as you go. One offers you a goodbye snack wrapped in banana leaves. Inside is unclear. It wiggles a little. You pretend to pocket it, then suddenly feed it to Parsnip. She seems delighted. You rejoin the caravan just as the sun dips behind the hills, throwing shadows like silk across the land. The road ahead looks long. Your legs are tired. Your new bark robe rustles like an annoyed bush every time you move. But still, you smile. Because today you bartered with a woman who beat trees into clothing, drank the forest, and possibly became a goat whisperer by The road rises slightly today, threading its way up a soft slope that seems determined to convince you it's a mountain. It's not, but your legs disagree. Even Parsnip is slower, as if she's holding a quiet protest against elevation. You suspect she's doing it for dramatic effect. Ahead lies a town the travelers call the Paper Place, though its proper name has long been lost or possibly mispronounced into oblivion. It sits on the edge of a river so shallow it murmurs more than it flows, lined with willows that always seem to be eavesdropping. As you approach, the smell hits you first. Wet pulp, ink, and sun-dried glue. It's not unpleasant, just peculiar, like walking into a bookstore that's been left in a sauna. There's something oddly comforting about it. Like this town is one large library that forgot it was supposed to be buildings. The houses, as it turns out, are partially made of paper screens, paper doors, paper awnings that flutter gently in the breeze like gossiping curtains. You wonder how anyone survives a rainstorm here. A boy passes carrying a paper parasol 3 times his size, dragging a trail of red ink behind him. He's followed by a chicken wearing a hat. No one explains this. You're guided toward the marketplace by a young woman who introduces herself as Shu. Like the sound of a quiet sneeze, she smiles with a mouth stained blue from ink grease. Her job, apparently, is to help foreigners not set things on fire. Which makes sense when you realize even the immortal armor here are made at least in part of paper. Armor. Made of paper. You laugh until Shu hands you a chest piece and tells you to try it on. It's light. Stiff, but flexible. Lined with layers and layers of lacquered paper, pressed together like the world's most aggressive origami. You tap it. It sounds like a very determined notebook. It works, Shu says with a shrug. If the arrow's not too rude historically, she's not wrong. Lamellar armor reinforced with lacquered paper was used in parts of East Asia, particularly when metal was scarce or heavy. It wasn't indestructible, but it was surprisingly effective, especially when fighting people who preferred shouting to standing. The village square is filled with stations. Women pounding bark, men stirring vats of pulp, children drying sheets on bamboo frames like laundry for very flag ghosts. Shu leads you to a workbench where you're invited to make your own sheet of paper. You hesitate. Last time you tried a craft, you superglue your sleeve to a teacup. Still, you dip the screen into the pulp, swish it gently, lift, and wait. It's oddly satisfying. Like making a cloud with your hands. You let it dry in the sun while sipping tea that tastes like citrus and burnt hope. Shu shows you calligraphy brushes made of wolf hair and reeds, and fans painted with rabbits dancing under moons. Every object here seems to have a story. You admire a scroll, its characters flowing like wind over water. What does it say? You ask. Shu squints. Something about socks and destiny. My uncle writes when he's emotional you spend the afternoon wandering narrow streets, brushing shoulders with scholars, traders, and a group of dancers rehearsing beneath a line of fluttering paper lanterns. One performer hands you a mask made of stiff and wise paper. It looks like a cat who's deeply disappointed in your life choices. You wear it anyway. By sunset, you've acquired a parcel of rough-edged stationery, a scroll with that poorly drawn goat, and a deep appreciation for ink-stained fingers. You rejoin the caravan just as Shu hands you a paper kite in the shape of a frog. It flies best when you're not trying, she says, smiling. Parsnip eyes it with suspicion. You tell her not everything is edible. She disagrees, loudly. As the caravan moves on, you glance back and see the town begin to glow with lanterns, dozens, hundreds casting golden halos in the dusk. The air smells faintly of mulberry and old secrets. Historians still debate how far this paper village's innovations spread. Some claim its techniques traveled all the way to the Abbasid courts. Others argue that trade records don't mention it enough to be sure. But everyone agrees something about the place lingers light, fibrous, impossible to fully hold. You clutch your parcel of handmade sheets as the stars rise overhead. There's something comforting about the idea that people here made armor and poetry out of the same pulp. The danger and beauty were pressed from the same soaked bark. The wind picks up as you camp beside a line of whispering reeds. You fall asleep to the soft rustle of paper in your pack, the gentle breath of parsnip nearby, and the faint suspicion that you're going to wake up tomorrow wearing that cat mask. It's not quite dawn when you wake to the sound of humming. Low, melodic, and slightly slurred like someone trying to remember a song they only half knew to begin with. You sit up and realize it's coming from the next tent over. The scent hits you a moment later. Fermented fruit, sharp and sweet, with a hint of something medicinal. You already know what's coming. The Sogdian merchant, who introduced himself yesterday with the bus so dramatic he pulled something in his back, has invited you and apparently, only you for a cultural sample, and you are not entirely sure what this means, but before you can protest, you're handed a ceramic cup of what looks like liquid sunshine and smells like tax evasion. Apricot brandy. It burns on the way down, and you immediately forget the word for ladle. The Sogdian, whose name may be Bershin or possibly Borscht, he mumbled it and you didn't ask twice, is already on the second cup. He launches into a poetic speech about the tragic romance of sand dunes and riverbeds, occasionally weeping into his sleeves. Your camel, Parsnip, snorts audibly at the performance. The rest of the caravan is slowly waking, and you notice a few bleary-eyed travelers giving you the you got caught in his orbit look. Apparently, Barters has a habit of hosting these impromptu dawn poetry and brandy sessions. Some call it spiritual, others call it Wednesday. The brandy, you're told, is homemade, aged in ceramic pots buried beneath the oasis for a minimum of 2 camel migrations. The recipe involves apricots, honey, and the enthusiastic involvement of local bees. It's illegal in exactly 3 regions and required in 2 others. The legal status alone should make you nervous. Instead, you have another sip. Barters leans in, eyes twinkling, and says, "Did I ever tell you about the time I traded a cart full of onions for a ghost story? You haven't heard this story. You're not sure anyone is." According to him, the story was cursed, and every time it was told, a rainstorm would follow. Naturally, he made a business of selling it to drought-stricken villages. Very ethical, he insists. Mostly he then offers to sell you the story, half price. You politely decline. He nods solemnly, then begins quoting poetry to Parsnip. She turns her head away in what can only be described as visible eye-rolling. She's unimpressed with literature before breakfast. The caravan resumes its journey later than expected thanks to the spontaneous brunch and brandy dates and storytelling circles. The trail ahead is flatter, wide open, with mirage stretching in the heat like daydreams. You find yourself riding next to Barters for a while. He hums between sips from a jug tucked into his saddlebag and tells you things he insists are true. That apricot trees were once planted along the roads as a kind of edible map. That a single drop of brandy from his homeland can reveal your future if applied directly to the forehead. That Parsnip was secretly loyalty. "I can tell," he says. She walks like she owns 2 deserts. Historians still debate the actual origins of apricot brandy along the Silk Road. Some credit Persian distillers, others point to Central Asian orchards. Recipes were rarely written down, and often smuggled inside hollow reeds or committed to memory by the most forgetful member of the family. You pass a crumbling watchtower and stop for a midday rest. The shade is spotty, but the ground is cool. You nap for 20 minutes with your hat over your face and dream of flying carpets that smell like jam. When you wake, Barters has created a tiny apricot sculpture of a camel and insists it's a gift. You thank him and immediately put it in your pocket before it collapses from the heat. Later in the day, the terrain shifts again. Patches of green rise like hopeful illusions, real oases, framed by date palms and wind-worn stones. You pass through a grove where someone's hung lanterns from the trees, swaying softly as if they're nodding hello. The caravan stops at one such oasis for the night. A proper camp is set up, with fire pits and rugs arranged like petals around a cooking circle. There's laughter, looser, warmer than usual, and it takes you a moment to realize why. It's the brandy. Barters has shared it widely tonight, and now the travelers were telling stories they probably shouldn't. One woman claims her donkey is part prophet. A cook swears he once served a dish so spicy it made a general forget his name for a week. Jin tries to marry 2 scorpions using a walnut shell as a chapel. The night is full of flickering flames and off-key songs. You lie back, staring at the stars, feeling the brandy warmth humming in your bones. It's not dizzying, not anymore. Just soft. You think about the apricot trees, blooming in faraway hills, the ones whose fruit traveled its accent stories across the centuries. You wonder how many drunken deals were struck over their fermented juice. How many romances. How many regrets. Barters, now gently snoring next to a half-finished poem, mumbles something about destiny and desert. And maybe he's right. Maybe this road is less about reaching a place, and more about collecting the stories that fall off the carts, cling to your road, and stick between your teeth like dried fruit. The night deepens. A breeze stirs the lanterns. And Parsnip, your steadfast, gassy companion, curls up beside you like an exhausted philosopher. Morning creeps in gently, wrapped in a cool haze, as if the desert itself is trying to delay waking up. You rise slowly, limbs a little wobbly, head full of apricot dreams and echoing poetry. Parsnip greets you with a deep, judgmental snort that seems to say, "Some of us were sober last night." You rub the sleep from your eyes just in time to hear the flapping of wings overhead. Dozens of them. Feathery, precise, and, most oddly of all, fashionable. Pigeons. Lots of them. Wearing tiny hats. You blink, wondering if the brandy has decided to linger. But no, those are absolutely pigeons, gliding in perfect arcs, each with a minuscule, colorful headpiece perched neatly between their eyes. One sports a red silk cap with a tassel. Another has something resembling a turban. A third has goggles. Goggles. They're messengers, your caravan guide explains, with all the seriousness of someone discussing government treaties. The hats keep them from getting confused with the wild ones. You nod slowly, unsure if this is clever or deeply chaotic. Today's journey takes a twist. You're veering off the main route to spend the afternoon at a small outpost known for its pigeon relay service. Here, amid sun-bleached towers and makeshift perches, couriers from Turkic tribes send and receive messages across hundreds of miles using birds with better fashion sense than most nobles. The camp is structured like a cross between a devkit and a post office. Wooden shelves line the walls, each pigeon in its own compartment, preening, resting, or proudly pecking at seat trays. The pigeon misters, as they're called, wear leather gloves and tunics decorated with bird motifs. One wears a cloak stitched entirely from discarded feathers and insists it's lucky. The young handler named Yelena offers you a demonstration. She gently ties a note to a pigeon's leg rolled paper, sealed with a dab of wax, and lifts the bird into the air. It flies off like it knows exactly where it's going. Probably because it does. You're offered the chance to send your own message. After a moment of thought, you scribble, "Still alive. Camel skeptical. Branded. Learning. You." The pigeon assigned to your message wears a headband made from what looks like shredded silk and leaves in a dramatic flutter. You salute it. No one else does, but you feel better doing it anyway. Yelena explains how these birds are trained from hatchlings to imprint on the home towers. Some fly as far as 300 miles. Others can navigate even in sandstorms, guided by magnetic fields, stars, or the occasional celestial suggestion. No one is entirely sure. Historians still wonder, she says, gently petting one of the birds, how people coordinated trade, diplomacy, and gossip before pigeons. Some say they used drums or smoke, but, well, pigeons don't burn that's fair. Nearby, Bearson attempts to befriend a bird wearing a bow tie. The bird pecks him gently. He calls it a soul connection. You take a tour of the pigeon barracks, little arched shelters where birds rest between flights. They're decorated with small trinkets, beads, bells, painted pebbles. Some birds appear to have favorites. One sleeps next to a feather doll. Another guards a bent copper coin like a dragon hoarding treasure. There's a ceremony before departure. A small drum is beaten, not for the pigeons but for the people, to signal the start of a new message cycle. Fresh scrolls are prepared. Hats are adjusted. Birds are fluffed. Then, with surprising grace, the flock launches into the sky, an organized chaos of flapping wings and embroidered accessories. You watch them vanish into the blue, bearing messages of trade agreements, marriage proposals, warnings about sandstorms, and possibly a recipe for little stew. Back at the relay station, Jin has constructed his own pigeon hat out of napkins and demands someone tie a message to his leg. The monk diplomatically suggests a tea break instead. You rest beneath a shaded pavilion, sipping chilled yogurt laced with mint and listening to the quiet rustle of feathers. A merchant nearby is sketching the birds for a scroll he claims will be part poetry, part pigeon fan fiction. You don't ask questions. Later, as you prepare to leave, Yelena hands you a small folded note. "One of the pigeons brought this for you," she says with a smirk. You open it and find a single line. "The wind travels faster with secrets." And you don't know who M is. But the message feels oddly comforting. You ride into the evening with a faint breeze at your back and the sound of wings still echoing in your ears. The sky's softening again, the world tilting to a coolness. Parsnip ears twitch as you pass a line of scrub trees. You hear the flap of a late pigeon overhead, carrying some final thought to someone who forgot to say it earlier. You wonder how many lovers, warriors, or wandering fools kept their hearts tethered to someone far away through birds wearing hats. You hope a few of them got happy endings. Maybe tonight, one of those pigeons will land on a rooftop under a sleeping moon, delivering just the right words at just the right time. And maybe it's late afternoon when your caravan crests a gentle hill and finds itself staring down into a strange little crossroads settlement, part market, part gathering place, part philosophical battleground. From this distance, you can already see someone gesturing wildly with a shoe. You ask your guide if it's safe. He shrugs. Depends how you feel about opinions. Welcome to Snake Hollow. That's not the actual name, of course, but it's what travelers call it thanks to a particularly popular merchant stall selling boots made from snakeskin, lizard leather, and, according to one sign, genuine sand-dwelling surprise reptiles. As you descend into the town, the air grows heavier, dustier. The scent of cured leather hangs thick, mingled with turmeric, incense, and the vaguely threatening aroma of hot vinegar. Market stalls huddle together like gossiping aunties. Crates of spices lean against wagons stacked with jars of pickled things you'd rather not identify. You're drawn to a stall draped in woven rugs and glinting buckles. The vendor, a lean man with a crooked grin and one eye that never quite focuses, waves you over. Boots? He asks. Or, beliefs? You pause. Is there a discount if I get both? He laughs, a sound like a broom being dropped down a stairwell. You're my kind of customer. He holds up a pair of boots. They're beautiful, hand-stitched, scaled, oddly elegant. You try them on. They fit like a sarcastic second skin. You admire your reflection in a scrap of polished bronze. You look ready to lead a rebellion. Or at least survive a poetry duel. There's only one catch, he says, lowering his voice. Here we go. They're cursed, he says. Probably. You blink. They belong to a prince, he adds casually. Or a thief. The story changes depending on how much sleep Ivan even offers you a choice. Take the boots and risk the curse, or settle for something safer and far more boring. You stare down at your feet. The boots feel right. Dramatic. Slightly magical. Definitely fashionable. You buy them. Bearshan, naturally, approves. You're a walking myth now, he says, raising his jug of apricot brandy in your honor. The afternoon bleeds into evening, and you wander into the square where a group is formed around a low stone platform. On it, two men are debating whether camels possess free will or merely expressive puppets of the wind. The crowd nods solemnly. One woman claps every time someone says existential. You sit next to a man with a straw hat and a scroll he's not reading. He tells you this happens every few days. A new debate, open to anyone. No winners. No prizes. Just words. Tonight's topic shifts. Someone shouts, define real wealth. And suddenly everyone has something to say. One man insists it's friendship. A woman claims it's fermented cheese. Someone else says it's silence, which is ironic, because he will not stop talking. You're pulled into the fray by accident. The young student with too many opinions demands to know your definition of wealth. You panic slightly, glance down at your cursed snakeskin boots, and reply, comfortable shoes, and a guide who knows when to lie. The crowd erupts in laughter and applause. The student glares, then sulks into the background. A small victory. Historians still debate whether these desert forums were genuine hubs of intellectual exchange or simply excuses for merchants to avoid work. Some records describe them as sand schools, others as places where logic came to die. Still, there's a charm to it. After the debate winds down, the market transforms. Lanterns are lit, stalls serve warm flatbreads and stewed lentils, and a trio of musicians begins plucking a tune on instruments made from gourds and goat hair. You sit beneath the hanging tapestry, sipping salty tea and watching a man juggle eggs while balancing on a barrel. A goat with a flower crown wanders past. No one explains this. Bearshan, now wrapped in a new shawl for intellectual flair, declares this the best day of the journey so far. You've argued with strangers, bought possibly cursed footwear, and heard at least two philosophies that make no sense. That's progress, you smile. He's not wrong. Parsnip arrives, led by Jin, who insists she's ready for the next debate. Do camels dream in color? The monk thinks they probably dream in scent. You decide not to weigh in. As the fire dies down and the stars reclaim the sky, you slip off your boots and examine them in the firelight. They're warm, dry, and carry the faintest trace of cinnamon. You haven't exploded or turned into a frog yet, which seems like a good sign. Still, you wonder about the curse. Maybe it's real. Maybe it's not. Or maybe the curse is simply the knowledge that these boots are now part of your story whether you like it or not. And somehow, that makes them even more valuable. You're jolted awake the next morning by a sound you can't quite place. It's rhythmic. Hollow. Wooden. You sit up, sand-crusted in one eyebrow, and squint toward the horizon. They're coming around the bend is a cart. No, not a cart. A mobile tea house. Mounted on wheels. Covered in hanging bells and fluttering paper charms. Pulled by a donkey wearing a decorative hat with tea or nothing stitched across the brim. On board is an elderly woman with a kettle in one hand and a ladle in the other, swaying with the motion of the cart as if this is the most normal thing in the world. This is Auntie Tula. And Auntie Tula, you're told, is the reason some caravans delay their journey for hours, sometimes days. She doesn't ask if you want tea. She assumes you do. And she's never wrong. Sit, she says before you've even stood up. You do. Tiny chairs unfold. A low table appears from beneath a crate. Parsnip is given her own bowl of water and what appears to be a biscuit shaped like a star. Auntie Tula moves with alarming speed for someone with knees made entirely of rumors. She begins brewing. The air fills with steam and cardamom, dried citrus peel, and something that might be clove or might be memory. Her teapot whistles not because of heat, but because it's enchanted. Probably. No one's entirely sure. You look dry, she says to you, squinting. Inside and out you're not sure how to take that. But the tea. Oh, the tea. It's rich, almost syrupy, but somehow refreshing. Your mouth tingles. Your brain sighs. The soles of your feet briefly forget that they've been abused by cursed snake-esque boots. Around you, travelers settle into mismatched cushions and crates, accepting their fate. Jin has already challenged the kettle to a duel and lost. Barson is giving a dramatic toast to the eternal leaf. The monk says nothing, but his blissful expression suggests he's levitating internally. Auntie Tula tells stories as she pours. Of a traitor who drank her tea and remembered 5 previous lives. Of a queen who refused her plan and lost a kingdom to drowsiness. Of the monkey who once paid for tea with a golden acorn. Her stories don't follow logic. Or time. But somehow, you understand them. Historians still wonder about the role of tea on the Silk Road. It was traded in bricks, packed with salt, even used as currency. Monks carried it in gourds. Generals hoarded it in caves. Poets built reputations on the way they described steam curling from a cup. Tea, it seems, was more than a drink. It was a map of intention. A ritual at rest. A declaration. We're not walking right now. After your second cup, Auntie Tula hands you a small pouch. For when the road forgets your feet, she says, without explanation. You accept it. The blend inside smells like laughter and laundry. Midday comes and goes. No one moves. The caravan is on pause, not officially, but spiritually. You all agree not to say it out loud. Auntie Tula sets up a game of chance. Wooden tokens, a painted cloth, and rules that shift depending on who's asking. Jin wins a pickled plum. Barson wins an insult from a stranger. You win the right to choose the next tea blend, which turns out to be dusty sunrise with a touch of existential cinnamon. Even Parsnip looks less grumpy. Slightly. Eventually, the sun begins to lean westward. Auntie Tula starts to pack. The bells chime with finality. The tea house shrinks back into its wheeled shell like a particularly cozy turtle. You're handed a last cup, lukewarm now, but still perfect. And then she's gone. Just rolling down the road, in no particular hurry. The donkey plods, the bells jingle, and Auntie Tula hums a tune no one else remembers. You all stare after her, collectively unsure if she was real. To which, someone mutters reverently. There's nods. She haunts me in my dreams. It's delightful. The caravan stirs. Boots are adjusted. Carts repacked. You feel oddly light, as if the tea stripped away some of your exhaustion and replaced it with focused thought. You don't question it. You walk until the sky turns lavender. That night, you boil water in your own small kettle, open the pot Auntie Tula gave you, and brook up beneath the stars. The scent alone calms your heartbeat. The sip tastes like something you once lost and forgot to miss. And in the quiet, as the wind whistles through a grove of thorn trees, you think of all the cups that passed between strangers, enemies, lovers, and wanderers. All the small silences held in steaming bowls. And you whisper, not to anyone in particular, tea or nothing. The morning sun is shy today, filtering through thick clouds as if it's decided to take the edge off. You appreciate the gesture. Your feet, however, are less forgiving. The cursed boots, still dramatic, still suspiciously stylish, had left your ankles slightly betrayed. But there's no turning back. The caravan is a new stop ahead. The great caravanserai of broken things. It's not on most maps. It probably shouldn't be. But everyone on the Silk Road seems to know it. Whispers of it pass between merchants and travelers like a beloved rumor. A place where broken goods, broken promises, and occasionally broken camels find second lives. When you arrive, you understand immediately. The entire complex looks like it was assembled by someone who lost the instruction scrolls halfway through. Buildings lean. Arches don't match. One tower appears to have a door 3/4 up the wall with no staircase. And yet, it all works. Somehow. You're greeted by a woman with soot-smudged cheeks and a tool boat heavy enough to anchor a ship. She introduces herself as Yara, head fixer and tea enthusiast. You break it, she says cheerfully, you also fix it. But first, you eat your way to a long communal table where cracked bowls and mismatched spoons are the norm. Lunch is a stew so thick it qualifies as a commitment. You eat alongside a Greek philosopher with a broken sandal, a Mongolian herder repairing a lute, and a goat who may or may not be a guest. Afterward, you're assigned a task. No exceptions. Everyone contributes. Your assignment. Button duty. A giant box of buttons, ceramic, wood, bone, some made from smelted coins or seashells, needs sorting. You are told to group them by material and vibe, not color. Not size. Vibe. You ask for clarification. Yara shrugs. You'll know, so you begin. One pile feels formal. Another, mischievous. A third gives you the distinct sense of mild treason. You don't question it. Sorting becomes oddly meditative. Like aligning small versions of the universe. Jin is nearby, attempting to repair a cracked mirror with sugar paste and string. The mug helps. Parsnip is not helping. She's discovered a barrel of fermented turnips and is now lying next to it with a deeply smug expression. Bersin has been tasked with mending scrolls. He uses glue, poetry, and somehow a feather duster. He hums as he works, off key and content. The caravanserai hums too. You realize it's not just a place for fixing things. It's a space. A pause. A breath in the middle of the endless forward motion. Here, objects are reimagined. Saddles are reforged. Cracked teacups become candle holders. Robes with torn hems are turned into patchwork pillows. Nothing is wasted. Not even mistakes. You watch Yara mend a saddleback using the handle from a broken ladle and part of a child's toy. It shouldn't work. But it does. It's not perfect. It's better. Historians still debate the role of makeshift repair hubs along the Silk Road. Were they vital logistics stops? Cultural mixers? Or simply places where overambitious donkeys needed emergency care? Whatever the case, the caravanserai of broken things embodies a truth that history often forgets. People didn't just trade goods. They reused them. Adapted. shared techniques, turned errors into innovations. By late afternoon, your fingers are sore but oddly proud. You've sorted all the buttons. Yera inspects your piles and nods solemnly. This, she says, is deeply chaotic. I approve. As a reward, she gives you a button made of glass with a swirl of silver trapped inside. For luck, she says. Or for closing a pocket of secrets, you pin it to your robe. Instantly feel 17% more mysterious. Before the caravan departs, you're invited to add something broken to the wall of patience, a long, low shelf filled with objects waiting to be mended. You place one of your old, cracked ink pots there, alongside a bent spoon and a single sandal that hums when the wind hits it. The road calls again. You rejoin your group. Parsnip trots along, snorting turnip-scented air. Jin shows off his repaired mirror, which now reflects only compliments. Bearson has written an ode to the glue pot. You walk away from the caravanserai carrying no extra weight, but somehow feeling lighter. And you think, maybe we're all just travelers being patched together. You're not sure how long you've been walking when the sand changes color. It happens gradually, a shift from gold to something paler, cooler, almost pearlescent. It crunches slightly underfoot, less like sand and more like salt. The guide confirms your suspicion with a grin. We're entering the salt flats, he says. Best not to lick anything. Bearson looks disappointed. Ahead stretches a strange, shimmering plain flat as if forgotten promise and just as eerie. The light reflects off the surface in blinding sheets, so you wrap your head in a scarf like the others, eyes squinting beneath the pale sky. The wind whispers here. Not in words, but in moods. The salt, the guide explains, is not just for trade, it's for preservation, for purification, and, in a few local legends, for stubborn ghosts who refuse to leave unless politely seasoned. You don't ask questions. The caravan moves slower now, the camel's hooves crunching in rhythmic patience. There's a silence to the place, not emptiness, but a kind of waiting. Like the ground itself is remembering things. Eventually, you arrive at a resting point, a small circular hut made entirely of salt bricks. The walls glint like crystal. Inside, it's cool, almost sacred. You sit in the shade, sipping water that tastes faintly metallic, and let your eyes adjust. Here, people trade salt away, others trade silk or silver. Blocks of it are stacked like currency, carried on wooden sleds or packed into baskets lined with goat hair. It's heavy, valuable, and according to the merchant you meet, completely misunderstood. He's a wiry man named Tirk, with hands stained from mineral dust and a permanent squint. He insists salt is more than seasoning, it's a story. He shows you chunks with hues of rose, amber, even greenish gray. Each comes from a different mountain, lake, or ancient seabed. He taps one gently and holds it to his ear. Can you hear it? He asks. You nod, even though it's silent. Good, he says. Most people lie. That's polite. Tirk explains how caravans would sometimes carry salt for months wrapped tightly in leather, protected from humidity, bartered bit by bit across regions where it was worth more than gold. Not for wealth, but for life. Food spoils. Salt doesn't, he says. Salt is certainty. You walk with them along the edge of a shallow salt lake, where a few locals still harvest crystals with broad paddles. The water reflects the sky so perfectly it feels like you're walking in two worlds. You squint and swear you see your reflection wave at you. Terp tells you have salt used in ancient ceremonies. How people were once buried in salt to keep their memories dry. How some traders believed eating the salt of a place made you part of its soul. Historians still wonder, he says, as he breaks a chunk of rose-pink salt in half, if that's why we remember some journeys more than others. You run your fingers along the salt brick wall. It's rough, cool, strangely comforting. Like the ghost of a glacier. You suddenly crave soup. Back at the hut, someone starts cooking. Stew with barley and dry vegetables, heavily salted. Terk offers flakes from a small pot he says he only uses when people need to remember who they are. You try a pinch. It tastes like ocean air and ancient promises. Bearson, naturally, insists on licking a wall. He's escorted outside for reflection. The sun begins to lower, casting long shadows across the flats. The world turns opalescent rose and gold, ivory and violet, colors that don't have names but feel familiar. You step outside and watch a few children skate across a patch of hardened crust, laughing as their sandals scuff the surface into tiny trails. A dog chases them, sliding more than running. Parsnip refuses to participate. She's seated regally beside a salt pile, blinking slowly, as if to say, "This is beneath me. I am marinated enough." You sit beside her. You think of the taste of salt on your lips, the slow crystallization of memory, how preservation and permanence can coexist in the most delicate of minerals. You think of letters sealed with salty fingerprints, of pickles in clay jars, of sweat and tears and everything that makes the road human. When you leave, Terk hands you a small carved salt stone shaped like a spiral. "Put it under your pillow," he says, when you want to remember something clearly. Or forget it kindly. You thank him. You walk on, the salt crunching behind you, the spiral growing warm in your hand. The night comes in gentle, silvery waves. The caravan hums quietly as barters are unfurled and boots are kicked off with grateful sighs. You fall asleep beneath a sky reflected twice above in stars, below in the salt and dream of walking through memory, barefoot and unhurried, leaving footprints only you can read. You wake to the sound of bargaining. Not arguing, bargaining. Which, out here, is closer to a performance art than a transaction. There's singing involved. Possibly some live choreography. You peer out from your blanket and see the source. A roadside bazaar, barely dawn-lit, already buzzing like a beehive that's at 3 cups of coffee. Bright fabrics hang from poles like flags of forgotten kingdoms. Stalls are loaded with spices, shoes, ceramic birds, and oddly a single wooden giraffe with one missing leg and a price tag that reads firm. This is the market of unreasonable things. You're not sure if that's official, but someone scrawled it in 5 languages on the entrance gate, so it might as well be. The rule here, apparently, is that you can trade anything so long as the trade is a story. Not coins. Not gold. Stories. You test this by trying to buy a scarf woven with silk and thread that glints like beetle wings. The vendor, a woman with hair wrapped in a turban of coins, stops you with a raised eyebrow. "What do you offer?" You reach into your bag, pull out a bronze ring. She shakes her head. "I want a story, so," you tell her one. About how you once mistook a diplomat's parrot for a roast chicken and tried to serve it with pickled onions. You may exaggerate slightly. She nods. Approves. Wraps the scarf round your shoulders. "Now you're part of it," she says cryptically. You are both charmed and alarmed. Around you, the market ripples with other trades. A shepherd trades a ballad for a pair of sandals that never wear out. A boy recites his grandmother's recipe for walnut stew in exchange for a wooden flute. Gian, of course, trades a proverb about invisible frogs for a clay bowl that might be cursed. Bearshan, true to form, offers a very moving monologue about an apricot pit and is rewarded with a decorative comb that he proudly sticks in his beard. Even Parsnip gets in on the act. The young girl gives her a garland of dried citrus slices in return for a wink and a dramatic sigh. Parsnip obliges. The girl leaves beaming. You're still not sure who got the better deal. You make your way through the market slowly. There's no rush here, only rhythms. You pass a stall where an old man is painting poems onto rice paper with a brush made of mouse whiskers. Another has stacked books with no titles, only colors, and dares people to buy the one that makes your stomach tingle. You choose a light blue one. It smells faintly of lavender and regret. At one corner of the market sits a tent, darker, quieter. People enter one at a time and leave with blank faces and small folded parcels. You ask someone what it is. They sell silence, she says. And memories you forgot to keep. You decide not to go in. You're full enough already. Near noon, a parade of sellers rolls through the center square. Drums made from dried fish platters, dancers with scarves of mist, a man who juggles clay pots while reciting laws of thermodynamics in 3 languages, poorly. The crowd throws dried figs and compliments. And then almost suddenly the market begins to fold itself away. Tents collapse like sleeping animals. Goods vanish into sacks and carts. People wave, exchange handshakes and riddles, and begin to walk in all directions. The market of unreasonable things doesn't close. It disperses. You sit on a rock, blinking. You have a scarf that hums quietly when you think too hard, a book with no words and a very specific smell, a deep urge to try the walnut stew from that boy's grandmother. You have no idea if any of this was legal. Historians still debate the purpose of traveling story markets. Were they real? Were they mythologized versions of ordinary bazaars? Were they used to spread coded political messages disguised as riddles and parables? Or were they, as Bershin insists, absolutely vital to the economy of whimsy? The monk joins you, sipping tea made from something called dream bark. He offers you a cup. It tastes like cinnamon and unfinished sentences. You leave the bazaar as the last seller boy with a bag of wind chimes walks into the desert and disappears into shimmer. The road ahead is quiet for once. Even Parsnip seems contemplative. You carry your new things carefully. But it's the stories you traded that echo loudest. It occurs to you, maybe every object we love is just a story we told at the right time. And maybe every market is unreasonable when your heart is open. The road straightens today, long and pale like a ribbon laid down by a giant who got distracted halfway through. There are no markets, no parades, no singing merchants on stilts. Just sky, sand, and the occasional bush doing its best impersonation of a plant that definitely didn't ask to be here. You fall into the rhythm of the walk. Left, right, breath. Sway, shift, sigh. Parsnip hums in her throat like she's composing a slow-burning opera about leg cramps. Around midday, the caravan stops by a lone stone tower, a way station for passing travelers, though it looks more like the kind of place ghosts go to write memoirs. Its only resident, as far as you can tell, is a man with eyebrows like storm clouds and a stack of scrolls taller than his camel. He's a mapmaker. But not just a mapmaker. Cartographic philosopher, he announces as you approach. I draw what should be there. He unfurls a scroll for you. It's a map, yes, but also a dream. Mountains where there are none, forests of songbirds, rivers shaped like questions. He taps one spot with an oppy finger. This is where the air tastes like cinnamon. You politely admire it. He beams. Then hands you a blank scroll and says, your turn. You laugh. He does not. So, you sit beside him in the shade of the tower and draw. Not well, but earnestly. You add a river shaped like a spiral. A hill that whispers bedtime stories. A resting place for old boots that have walked too far. You draw Parsnip's ears, which somehow end up larger than the moon. Bershin draws a bakery that only serves bread when you compliment it. Jin sketches a garden full of philosophical worms. The monk refuses to draw anything and instead folds his scroll into a paper camel, which promptly blows away and is declared free spirit. The mapmaker nods approvingly. All correct, he says. You're not sure what that means. But you feel a little taller anyway. He tells you about ancient cartographers who used poetry to describe landscapes. Who believed directions should rhyme. Who insisted a traveler could never truly be lost, only mismatched with the map. Historians still puzzle over these poetic maps. Some dismiss them as nonsense. Others claim they preserved the emotional geography of a place the way a road feels rather than where it leads. You sip takpa tea as the sun leans west. The mapmaker tells you his greatest creation was a map of regrets. Each regret marked with a blue dot. When I finished, the paper wept. He gives you a tiny compass before you go. It doesn't point north. It points to where you last laughed. You tuck it in your bag between the silent book and the mistress scarf. As the caravan sets off again, you glance behind at the tower growing smaller in the distance. It looks taller now. Or maybe you do. The road curves slightly, just enough to remind you the world isn't straight, and maybe that's a gift. Parsnip nuzzles your elbow and snorts. You're right, you tell her.